So let's have a look at how a Guttman chart works in practice. What I have here is a Guttman template that's set up for you to use basically as is. It has a few instructions that I'll go through here, and it's set up to accommodate up to 10 criteria. Any Guttman assessment is designed to assess a series of related criteria from a topic area. It's got skill written here, but it can really be anything you're talking about. It could be knowledge or understanding. It could be any concept that you want to cover in here. You've got room to enter whatever the different things are in here, and you've got room to enter your students' details in here. And this space in here is the Guttman matrix. This is where all of the action's happening. So you can enter your results in here, and I'll discuss how that's done in just a minute. And the totals for each student are calculated here, and the totals for each concept or criterion are here. You can access this via the data booklet, or you can access it on Compass by going into school documentation. Under staff there, you'll find a folder that's labeled guides and booklets, and under that you'll see data, and there is the Guttman chart template right there, and you can just take that, download it, and use it as you will. I have one that I've begun to fill out just here. This is one for chemistry, and we have up here a set of 10 criterion that goes from arguably simpler concepts to more advanced concepts. What I haven't done yet is I haven't put in my students, and that's really easy to do. Nobody expects you to type those out from scratch. Easiest way to do that is to again go through Compass, go to that particular class, and download that class list as a CSV. That'll pull it straight down onto your hard drive. You pick that up, and we have our students here, so I can just highlight these, just the students' names and their codes, copy that, come over here, and it's usually easiest just to go paste values because that keeps all the formatting in the same style. So what we've got here is we haven't used all of the Guttman template, so that's not a problem. All we do is highlight the rows that we're not using, and we can just delete them. So they're gone now, and now we're ready for business. Okay. This particular matrix accepts either a 1 or a 0. Guttman charts tend to work best when you only have right or wrong. And it might seem a little bit brutal, but it works much better when it comes to actually sorting and organising your students into instructional groups and identifying their zone of proximal development. So in this case, I will indicate a correct answer with a 1 and an incorrect answer with a 0. Okay, the zeros stay red, the ones turn green, and this makes it much easier to visually see what you're talking about later on. So let's go through and put in Zaida's results. There they are, and we can see that we have begun to do a couple of things on our totals column. It shows that she got 4 out of the possible 10. That number's obviously not super important, but it's really important for sorting, but it's not really super important for anything useful. It doesn't really tell 4 out of 10, doesn't really say what, but here is what's saying what she has been able to show and what she has not been able to show. Similarly down here, we can see that we're starting to get questions that have a total. So for the question on calculating mole, we have a total score of 1 for all of our students, but we've only entered in 1. And for our chemical calculation or equations, we've got 0, as in no students have gotten that one right. And that's really important for assessing which concepts are best understood in the class. Let's kick over to one where I've entered all of the results in, and here we can see we've got a bit of a mishmash. Okay, we can see some areas where perhaps the concepts aren't quite so well understood in ionization constant and resulting pH in excess. And then there's a bit of noise. And the way we interpret all of this stuff is by using these total columns. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to order the student scores from highest to lowest, so the student who has demonstrated themselves most capable in this instance to the student in most need of support. And we want to do the same thing for the questions. So we want to see the questions that are, or the concepts or the criterion that are the most well understood through to the ones that are least well understood. Okay, and this can be a bit tricky if you've never done it before. So I'll go through it now. The first thing we'll do as students, and that's quite easy. We don't want to change the order of this row. We don't want to change the order of anything down here. We just want to change the order of the students. So we select everything from the first student all the way down to the last row of the column, of the totals column. We go up here to sort and filter. If you're on Microsoft, on a Windows platform, this will look a little bit different, but the process is essentially the same. We go to custom sort. We want to make sure my list has headers is not ticked, because if we do, it'll get rid of the top row, and we don't want that. We want to sort on column N, because column N is the one that has all of our totals in, and we want to go from largest to smallest. So if we tick OK on that, it will resort our students, and they will be in order from the student, again, who has demonstrated themselves most competent in this instance, to the student who is in most need of support, or students who are in most need of support. But it doesn't stop there. Okay, this looks pretty good at the moment. We're starting to see that, down in the bottom right-hand corner, we've got the most zeros, and up here in the top left-hand corner, we have the most ones. And this test was might have been designed to make sure that the first question was the easiest and the last question was the hardest. But your criterion might not conform to that. So it's a really important next step to make sure that we select this region. So that's including the all of the total rows, but also including all of the question and criterion rows as well. Okay, all of these columns here. And we want to sort these to ensure that the best answered question is over here in column D, and the worst answered question is over here in column N. So we only want to select this region. Again, we go up to sort and filter, and again we go to custom sort. But you'll notice here it says, what column do you want it to sort on? And we actually don't want it to sort on columns. We don't want it to sort top to bottom. We want it to sort left to right. So we go down here to options. We open that up, and instead of sort top to bottom, we say, please sort left to right. And now it's going to say, okay, well, which row do you want me to sort on? And we can have a look at that, and we can go, well, I would like you to sort not on the question row, which is what it's essentially currently sorted on, 1 to 10. We actually want to sort down here on the totals row, and the totals are for mine, in row 20. If you have more students in your class or less students in your class, this will change. But you just look for whatever row the totals are in, and we select that. Okay, so I want row 20, and again, I don't want smallest largest, I want largest to smallest, and we hit that. And now we can see we've got a very, very clean Guttman distribution. This is exactly what we're expecting to see. We can see up here there are questions that basically everybody has been able to do, and down here we have questions that basically nobody has been able to do. I mean, some people have, but that's what we get to next. What we have in this middle band here, these little groups over here, we can see that we've got this noise, and we've got from, we go from questions that the students can answer to questions that the student cannot answer. This interface of what they can do and what they need support yet to do, this is effectively our zone of proximal development for each student. But we can actually go one more. If we take a look at this group of students up here, okay, and we highlight all of them, we can see that there is one student in here who can do all of these things. And this student, in all honesty, is probably okay with this concept, with this topic area, and is ready for a little bit of enrichment or enhancement in the area. But the student below her has struggled with resulting pH in excess. The student below them has got resulting pH in excess, but has not got ionization constant. The student below them needs more support with ionization constant, and both of them. But in this group, there are people who can do that, and there are people who can't do that. And most often what you'll find is there are groups where you've got people who can do something and people who can't do that thing. So it's basically perfectly identifying our instructional groups. So these are really good groups that you can organize your students into. So now that we've got that ordered and ready to go, we can start to identify instructional groups. Now, when you're identifying an instructional group, it's probably best to go from they fluctuate, and you can have 4 groups, or you can have 5 groups, or you might have 3 groups. It doesn't really matter. It's sort of where they naturally sit, and you'll know that best. But here you can see I've gone down in each case to the lowest one that a student has got 0 on. So we start there, and then we begin to move our way up. So these are our 2 students who got 2 correct. they will need more support, and that group is smaller because they need to work on those things before they can get to the more advanced concepts along here. These students are in a really good spot because there is somebody who can do every single one of these questions in this group, okay? Most of them cannot do the chemical equations question, but one of them can. So he can act as a really good support for them, and we can activate him as a resource. Same thing, that same student though can't do pH calculations, but we've got 2 in there who can. And these 2 are also going to need support with that, but we've got 2 potential teachers for those other 3 students. Making our way down, here we've got 3 students who can do dilution calculations and 2 who can't. So we've got, again, we're sort of increasing the ratio of teacher to student there. And finally here, we've got 1 person who's struggling with the general gas equation and 4 who can do it. And the idea is here that I want to take all of these students, I want to put them into instructional groups, whether that means I'm actually putting them into groups or it means I'm differentiating their work in another way. But chiefly, we really want to activate them as resources for one another. So this allows all of these students to ideally, in whatever period of time you want to set aside for it, to work on those concepts, and then the next time I do this Guttman test, might be in a week, it might be in 2 weeks' time, might be next lesson, have all filled out in their zone of proximal development and are starting to move into new ones. And in an ideal world, over time, we will be able to take this from something that's maybe half ones and zeros to something that is all ones and no zeros. But you're never going to be able to do that if you can't accurately identify what each student can and can't do. And that's the real beauty of a Guttman chart. That's the real power of a Guttman chart. So yeah, that's Guttman charts.